welcome to the Wool and Twine Fiber Studio YouTube channel. My name is Jule and I'm the dyer and maker behind Wool and Twine Fiber Studio, which is a small creative space located here in northern Germany where I play with botanical dyes and natural yarns. Welcome or welcome back to my channel where I share a lot of things about my knitting and my naturally dyed yarns. But today I wanted to record a little bit of a special video for you that I haven't really done before like this. But, you know, over the past years, I have received so many questions about pattern suggestions or what I particularly would knit in, you know, a certain base of mine. And so I thought it's a nice opportunity to showcase something a little bit different for you today. And that is this beautiful book. This is the 52 Weeks of Sweaters book by Laine Publishing, which is a Finnish publisher that also does a seasonal knitting magazine with different patterns. But I think a couple of years ago, I think it might have been 2020 or so, they released the first series or the first edition of the 52 Weeks series, which is a series where basically there are 52 types of patterns from a certain kind of category. So I think it started with 52 weeks of socks. And now it kind of like transitions into all of these different, you know, types of garments or like scrappy knits, chunky knits. They always have like one theme going through, and then there are 52 patterns in these type of books. And I think this one was a relatively highly anticipated one because, I mean, sweaters are the one thing that a knitter can do, and that is like always kind of like admired so much by everyone making their first sweaters. So I think, yeah, this book just features 52 weeks, 52 patterns by different designers from all over the world. And so now with the sweater edition of the 52 Week series, I thought, why not share, you know, my favorites from the book with you and also what yarns I would knit this one in from my lineup. So yeah, I just hope you will love, you know, my little selection. I had a really hard time selecting just 10 patterns from the book because they are honestly, like, there are a lot of beautiful patterns in there. Quick disclaimer, I have curated this list of patterns all on my own. I am not set to say anything in this video. Laine is not paying me for anything. I have received copies for free though. That's what I wanted to say as a disclaimer. But also because I have contributed yarn to the book and gave, you know, pattern support, no, yarn support for one pattern in this book. However, Laine ever so kindly gifted me extra copies to give away, which will also be a part of this video, but that's coming at a later date in the video. You may use the timestamps down below to jump to the section. However, there will be a giveaway at the end, so definitely stay tuned for that. But what I wanted to say is that I am by no means meant to be saying something particular about the book or anything. These are all my thoughts and my genuine excitement about it because, you know, for me, I oftentimes have this thing that I like a publication. I'll maybe like 2 or 3 patterns in it, but other ones are maybe not my thing so much. But in this one, I have to admit that there are a lot of patterns that I really liked and that I had a hard time narrowing it down to like my 10 favorites. And I don't know what it is, but there are a lot of really beautiful patterns in this book, and that's what makes me even more excited to show them to you. One more disclaimer, I am going to put up pictures of the patterns on the screen just because I don't want to give away any instructions from the book. And I'm doing this with permission from Laine, so they permitted me to use their photos. I'm also going to share what base I think would be suitable for my lineup for each pattern. So yeah, I hope this will be a little bit inspiring for your next upcoming knitting project potentially. And I should also mention that the book is going to release today. So when this video goes live, you should be able to purchase the book, and I am going to put the link down below where you can get it. I'm by no means affiliated with this. I just genuinely want you to potentially get the book because it's really good. Yeah, but I guess without further ado, let me start sharing my favorite patterns from this book with you. So I'm going to keep referencing my copy that has all of these little tabs in here, just so you're not wondering why I'm looking down, but I was not able to remember all of these names. So the first favorite I have on my list is the Ruth sweater by Annie Vegrois, I would assume she's pronounced. I'm sorry if I'm butchering anyone's name here. Trying my best to pronounce them correctly. But what I really like about this pattern is that it has this it has almost a yoke pattern, but it's only textural and it's very minimalistic and soft in a way. In the original sample, they also chose like a natural ecru, as you can see, a natural ecru color and also a fluffy yarn to use throughout. So the texture is very subtle and it gives, it's not that it's like a loud yoke sweater. It's more like a, my kind of vibe, I would say, with this soft textural elements that give just a bit of interest but are not overwhelming, and if that makes any sense. I think it's really wearable and very chic. Honestly, I'm really tempted to make this one myself. And the gauge is 16 stitches by 22 rows. And it is on 5mm needles. So the yarn that I would personally use for this is either a DK weight held with a mohair, which I think is what they did in the original sample to kind of like soften the texture. A little bit like the cardigan that I'm wearing, which is the Book Club cardigan by Sally Nordlund. Where I used my BFL Romney with my Cloud Silk mohair, which is a DK weight worsted spun yarn with a lovely drape plus some mohair. For a little bit of a muted texture. Or what I also think could be quite nice is using rift worsted. This one is a woolen spun, and even though it has like a DK weight meterage, it blooms fantastically, and you can easily knit it on a worsted weight gauge. So I think it would totally be doable to reach like the 16 stitch gauge with rift just on its own. I'm trying to be to also give you alternatives for the patterns to knit without mohair, because I know not everyone can tolerate mohair. A lot of the patterns, funnily enough, feature some mohair in it, which I find interesting because I had the feeling that the mohair hype kind of was dying down a little bit. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about it, if mohair is still a thing or a thing again. Because for me, I kind of felt like I saw fewer patterns used with like 2 strands featuring some mohair. However, in this book, there are a lot of patterns that I also ones that I love that are featuring either mohair or any kind of other fluffy yarn. So that's interesting. But yeah, I think my choice for this one would either be a DK weight plus a mohair. So either our BFL Romney DK plus mohair, or even heirloom DK plus mohair, which would probably result in an even more halo-y fabric, because heirloom has even more of a little bit of a halo. And I think it would complement the mohair really well. Or if you wanted a bit more of like a rustic, less ethereal version, I would suggest using rift worsted on its own. Wow, now I've already talked like almost 10 minutes and we're not even done with the first pattern. So, well, let's see where this goes. The next pattern I was really falling in love with is the Safe Harbor sweater by Jimmy Myers. This pattern is inspired by traditional ganzes and fishermen sweaters of the past, which I absolutely loved. And it's also very oversized, which is, if you know me and if you've been following for a while, you know that I love oversized sweaters. This might actually be the one that I kind of want to cast on next. I really, really like this kind of like geometrical shape. I think I talked about this in my latest podcast episode that I'm really interested in like minimalist geometrical shapes at the moment. I don't know what it is, but textural knits are like so up my alley right now. So I think this is just one of them. And I also love the styling they did on this one with like the wide pants. I think it's very chic and like in a cool way chic. Um, the yarn used is a DK weight yarn, and it's the gauge is like a 20 times 32, like 20 stitches times 32 rows on a 3.75 millimeter. And this is what makes me knit this even more, because 375 is my favorite needle size, to be honest, and I just love it. I think it's just such a good needle size. I also love 3.5 and then 4 millimeter, but 3.75 is, is my sweet spot. So this makes me personally want to knit this even more. It's a raglan construction, so it's also like relatively mindless to do, I guess. And I just love this like Ganze inspired leather motif that Jimmy used in it. So yeah, I am really excited. It also features a new to me technique that is called the Icelandic bind off. Never heard of it before, and I've never tried it, so I'm very intrigued to try it. And yarn-wise, I would suggest using either BFL Romney DK or Heirloom DK for this one, because those should be like matching pretty much exactly. You could also, if you wanted to go a bit more open gauge, you could try a Solid Sport, because it's technically not like, this is more of like a lighter weight DK weight gauge, but with Solid Sport, it's so voluminous and blooms so much that it, you could technically knit it on a slightly more open gauge and also knit the sweater with it. However, I think to achieve the same kind of drape as they intended it in the pattern shoot, I would probably go with either BFL Romney DK or Heirloom DK, as they would probably result in a more drapey fabric than Solid Sport does, because that one is a bit more plump, if I'm making sense. Although it would probably highlight the texture really nicely. So if you wanted a bit more of a crisp texture, Solid Sport might also be a good idea. But I think my top pick for this one would either be BFL Romney DK or Heirloom DK. I'm really like, what should I do? I'm excited for this one, so I really want to knit this one. But yeah, let's get to the next pattern. So the third pattern that I really caught my eye is the Cassia sweater by Emily E. or Y. Chen. So it has a relatively like simple shape. It has a saddle shoulder and like a very nice fit, with like a slightly like the saddle shoulder dropping a little bit over the shoulders. And it has this beautiful cable motif running down the sleeve, which I really like. And I think that just adds so much interest. But what also really caught my eye was the little small like short button band. And I don't know, the neckline just looked very neat to me. And I don't know, I really liked this kind of neckline in combination with a subtle detail on the sleeves, because if you've been around for a while, you might know, but I definitely am more of like a minimalist when it comes to my own wardrobe. And I like when I'm able to kind of capsule everything and wear all of my pieces pretty much interchangeably with, every dress I own. So what I really like is when a pattern has a relatively minimalist shape and makeup, but then has these like sweet details that, just make it interesting and also fun to knit. So yeah, this is definitely one of those patterns with a little cable detail running down the sleeves. I think it's just very elegant as well. And, I kind of envision this with like a wide culotte type of pant even. Yeah, I think the Cassia one is definitely one of my favorites too. And yarn-wise, it's also like a DK weight gauge, but more on like a slightly heavier DK weight. But she knits this one on 4.5 millimeter needles for 21 stitches times 30 rows. And I mean, you might need to check how your personal gauge is with this, because I technically never, like a 21 stitch gauge would for me would be more like a 3.75 to 4 millimeter needle. So it might also depend on the gauge of the designer. The fabric to me doesn't look overly open gauge, so I guess you could get away with like any kind of DK weight yarn depending on what denseness of fabric you want to go for. I technically, again, would do this one in a DK weight only. And I think I would probably use heirloom for this one, just because I think the super slight halo of heirloom would really benefit the overall elegant look with the cable detail without, blurring the cable too much. For me, I usually when I do cables or anything, I don't necessarily want them to be super crisp. Same goes with texture that is, a bit. I just recently finished a cardigan where there is a textured pattern that can look very crisp if you're using a very round, bouncy yarn. But I used 2 strands of my own nurture yarn, which is a single ply with a lot of halo. And I love that. I love the kind of like subtleness that it gives, and that the texture is not like screaming at your face. And as you can see, even if I'm doing a cabled sweater like this one, I used it with a strand of mohair, which blurred the cables quite significantly. Yeah, but yeah, for my personal taste, I would do this one in heirloom DK. Although, as mentioned, using a nurture held double could also work. Like nurture is a single ply yarn that, if you hold it double, it doesn't result in a dense fabric like holding a plied yarn double. So I think that could also be very nice, and it would have kind of a similar effect in terms of halo-iness, like a subtle halo to kind of complement the elegant shoulder detail, I guess, or like sleeve detail. So yeah, that would be my guess for the Cassia sweater. Next up, we have the Chainette by Eva Yazionovska. And this one is also really nice. Again, very oversized and, more of like a relaxed fit. Guess there is a pattern here in my pics. But yeah, this one has a V-neck, which I think is interesting because I don't always like V-necks, but in this case, I think it's such a great layering piece that would look really great with, for example, collars underneath. So I think in this case, they also styled it with a shirt underneath where you can see like the collar, and I really like that styling as well. So it is kind of a ribbed pattern, but it has these like twists in between that kind of like elevate the pattern from being just twisted rib, which there is nothing wrong with just a ribbed garment. I think it's actually quite chic to have like just a super simple ribbed garment. But this is so fun because from far away you could think it's just ribbed, but then if you look a bit closer, you can see that there is like this little twist in between, like almost like a chain or like braid piece in between, and I really like that one. So yeah, I also think the shoulder construction is nice because I do like a dropped shoulder, so I really like that one, and also enjoyed the I-cord bind off at the neckline. I think it's quite nice, and I also love that the body is kind of like flowing just in the rib pattern, and it doesn't have like a hem, a different hem pattern. So I kind of really like this one as a layering piece that could work with a lot of other oversized pieces in my wardrobe, at least. Especially, I have this one pair of pants that is super wide. Like it's not even a culotte. It's almost like it's like a hybrid of a skirt and pants, if that makes sense. And I have that one in like a linen fabric, so it drapes really nicely. And I think it's quite nice to wear it with like a blouse or a shirt and then layer this piece over top. That would what I would do. And the pattern is actually, I think it's worked in one strand of fingering plus a fluffy yarn again. And I think with this one, I would definitely go with something slightly more open gauge. So I wouldn't knit this one too tightly because I think the whole texture and flowiness of the garment kind of lives from the slightly more open gauge. And so for my choice for this one would probably be BFL Romney 4-ply and Cloud Silk Mohair, just because the BFL Romney 4-ply in comparison to, for example, Heirloom 4-ply is it has 2 strands plied together instead of 3, which is the case for Heirloom. And that gives even more drape than the 3-ply, even though the 3-ply also drapes very nicely. I think for this one, I would go as drapey as possible. So I guess the BFL Romney 4-ply plus some Cloud Silk Mohair, or even if you wanted to go even fluffier, I would go with Nurture plus Cloud Silk Mohair, which is a beautiful combo that I have just recently fallen in love with because, you know, you will see later, but there will be a new sample coming in this yarn combo that I will be presenting very, very soon. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But it's a beautiful, that creates a beautiful fabric. It's very airy and very lightweight. And I think that's what I would go for with this piece. For me, this is more of like a transitional layering piece rather than like a proper thick, heavy winter sweater. So yeah, that would be my approach in choosing yarns for this pattern. And yeah, so far about the chain net. Let's get to the next one. So for the next one, I might be biased because it was designed to my yarn by a friend of mine. But I actually genuinely love this pattern, and it is the Harvest Slipover by Jenny Ansar. And it is just a really nice type of slipover. And if you've been following me recently, you might know that I have a recent obsession with slipovers. So the book doesn't only feature just traditional, pullovers, but it also features some slipovers as well as cardigans. So kind of like the sweater term stretched a little bit just to have some variety, which is what I love, because that way you can actually, like, it's not such a seasonal book, but you can actually find something for every season. And this one would be more of like a transitional to summery piece to me. So the Harvest Slipover is, it has this ribbed texture. It has these beautiful braids on the sides that are like kind of developing from coming down the armhole, and I think it's just really pretty. It has an I-cord finishing at the neckline and the armhole. Yeah, I think it just looks very neat. And in the sample of the book, it's also in a bit more of like a cropped version, which is what I really like, honestly, because I think that way it looks great over dresses as well if you crop it a little bit. But yeah, it also has this, like the little cable detail. It also is featured on the shoulder portion of the slipover, which is what I really like. And I think this is also going to be so nice over like lightweight linen dresses in summer. Speaking of linen, this is, well, great transition. But this one was designed in my linen base in the DK weight. So that one is 75% blue-faced Leicester and 25% unbleached flax fibers. So it's more of like my summery transition base, if that makes sense. And it's a beautiful yarn. It has super nice drape. And yeah, what else would I suggest for this one than the original yarn it was designed in? Though if you wanted to make it a bit more of a wintry version, I think you could also go with like Heirloom DK would totally work with that gauge, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but that would be my suggestion for the Harvest Slipover. I think it's very beautiful, and it's inspired by grain fields, which is what I can totally see with those cables running down. So that's very pretty. But yeah, so far about the Harvest Slipover. Let me get to the next one. The next pick I have for you is another slipover. You can definitely see my obsession with slipovers here, but it's the Morup by Christine Moltrup-Holm. I'm really sorry if I'm butchering your name, Christine. But yeah, this one is like a buttoned one. It's more like a vest type of slipover. And I think it's super nice because it has this like academic, like more, not preppy, it's not the right word, but kind of like very put together vibe to me, with the buttons and everything. And it has a broken rib kind of texture that I really like. And that is just, it's kind of simple and minimalist again, but it has this texture that makes it interesting, I guess. And this one layered over dresses would also be so, so good. Although I also really like the styling of it being over a complete denim, like overall. It's not an overall, it's like a two-piece, but you know what I mean. I did like the color scheme of the styling as well. But yeah, this one is actually, like, I really like this one. So the original sample is worked in 2 strands of yarn, one being a lace weight and the other one a fingering weight. The lace weight, however, is not a fluffy yarn, so I think she's using an alpaca type yarn. So what I would actually do to do a similar kind of effect is hold 2 strands of my nurture base double. And, that one would give, the kind of drapiness that you would have like an alpaca or cashmere a little bit. And then it also gives, a bit of a halo that I think, again, would soften the textured stitch of the broken rib quite well. I really like that idea. And yeah, I think she also says you can use a mohair. So it's kind of like it's a personal preference thing. So you could also do BFO Romney 4-ply and mohair held together, or even heirloom 4-ply with mohair. So depending on what you prefer for your own fabric. The gauge is 21 stitches by 27 rows in the broken rib stitch, so not in stockinette. But yeah, to me it all looks as if it would be the best way to just hold 2 yarns together to kind of soften the broken rib texture. So I think my top pick would actually be fingering plus mohair for this one. But again, it's also totally doable to do 2 strands of nurture, especially because nurture is very versatile in gauge, because even if you hold it double, it's not gonna be like very stiff or dense. So yeah, so far about my model inspiration. Next up, we have one more slip over. I'm going to be done with the slip over soon, but they are all like, I'm going through the book chronologically, so they are all in one section. So that's why they're all like in one section here as well. So this one is the Trellis slip over by Ines Garcia Suarez. Very sorry again. And it is also a slip over, this time with a V-neck, which I also love because I haven't featured one with a V-neck yet. And it has this quite nice pattern that is like, it looks like a garter stitch C with like little bits of stockinette rows that are kind of like scattered around. It almost reminds me of like a pine tree pattern. I think it's quite nice. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she knits it on a slightly more open gauge in order to have like a more open texture. And she uses she uses 1 strand of fingering weight, which is also, the original yarn is in a blend that is very, very similar to my BFL Romney blend. So I think BFL Romney 4-ply would be a great choice for this pattern. The stitch gauge is 22 stitches times 35 rows in stockinette stitch on 3.5 millimeter needles. So I guess, if I'm not mistaken, this looks as if she's like doing it on a bit more of an open gauge. But I really like the fabric in this one, and I think, yeah, you could achieve a very similar fabric with BFL Romney 4-ply, or even with heirloom 4-ply would also work for this one. Although I think I would prefer the BFL Romney 4-ply. But yeah, I think this is just a very nice pattern. I also really love the ribbed and very neat V-neck with this little like center line going down. It's very nice. I guess that is it what I can say about the trellis. Let me stop my slip over section and get to the next one. The next pattern I wanted to mention here is the Albor sweater by Janice Campuzano. I'm sorry again. And this one is very elegant. I think it's like a cardigan, but super drapey and knit in a fluffy yarn that has, it's one open on the model, but I think if it would be closed, you will see like a geometrical pattern of slip stitches kind of running through or running down the side panels of the pattern, which I really like. Again, this is this type of aesthetic that I really love when it's like a relatively minimalist shaping, but it has these details that are just I also really like the button band. I don't know what it is that makes the stitch look kind of more open, whether it's just a double knit or if it's like, I don't know what it is, but it looks super nice. And this one is actually knitted in 2 strands of yarn again, and I think they're using a fingering plus a lace weight again, and in this case I would definitely go with Nurture plus Cloud Silk Mohair, because I think it would result in a very similarly drapey and fluffy fabric that I think is just very pretty. Yeah, they are also, like, in the yarn alternatives, they're also suggesting other solid fingering weights plus fluffy yarn. So I guess I would go with Nurture with help with mohair, and then I would also, like they do, use a bit more of an open gauge. So they're doing 4.5 millimeters for the body and sleeves, like for the main needle on stockinette stitch. And the gauge is 20 stitches times 30 rows in stockinette stitch. So I love this one. It's just so nice. And again, I think even for summer, it would be such a nice layering piece that you can just throw over a dress or anything. It's very elegant and like, I really like this aesthetic in like a lighter colored yarn and maybe even like a pinkish tone to have like a very elegant piece to throw over, a summer dress or so. This is kind of the vision I'm getting from this one. And if you didn't want to use a fluffy yarn, which obviously I also sometimes want to mention alternatives if you don't want to use that, I think I would go for Heirloom DK in that sense. It would result in a way less drapey fabric, but it would have like a slight halo without the mohair fluff. And same goes for Nurture Held Double. That would also work in my eyes, although you would, achieve more of like a dense-ish kind of gauge. Not really dense, but not as airy as it is in the photographed sample. So yeah, but that's where we are with the Albor cardigan. I really like this one. I also really like the styling on this one. I like this kind of old school denim, and I like the fit of the jeans. So yeah, very inspiring. The next one is also a favorite, and I kind of want to have put my own interpretation to this one because it's the Hue Shift cardigan by my friend Evdoxia Gluceria Pantasi, who's going to roast me for completely butchering her name, probably. I'm sorry, Doxy. But this is such a nice pattern, which was inspired by creating a colorful garment without just using stripes. So she wanted to incorporate several colors without just doing stripes in the pattern. And what she did is that she had like the different panels of the cardigan are knitted in different colors. And I think it's just really cool. And, I'm not necessarily that colorful of a person, but I think combining different neutrals or even like muted shades would be so pretty in this one. So that's kind of my take on it. I really like the sleeves on this one because they're super balloony, and this is one that I would totally wear buttoned up, I think, because it shows also like the different colored panels so well. It's very nice. It's just a very beautiful pattern. I love the wider button placket down the front, and yeah, I think imagine this one in like my kind of muted color palette. It would have a completely different vibe from the original sample, but I think it would be equally lovely. So yeah, that's what I'm really intrigued by, to kind of like interpret this one in my more muted, less pastel aesthetic that I am usually going for my wardrobe. So yeah, sometimes I like to kind of stretch my ideas to something that, wouldn't in its original shape would maybe be too bold for me, but like kind of interpreting it in my own way. And I think this one would be so, so nice. And yarn-wise, it's again a fluffy version. So I think she's using she's using one strand, but of like a DK weight fluffy yarn. And I think you could also do this in cloud held double, maybe even marling 2 colors together. This is just an idea that just came to my mind, like having 2 different colors, like one strand in one color and another strand in another color, and then kind of marling them together. And the stitch gauge is 17 stitches to 26 rows on 4mm needles. So it's also a bit more of like an open gauge type of situation, I guess. But I think that's what really contributes to the drape and fluffiness of the balloon sleeves, because I think if you would go with a too dense of a fabric there, they wouldn't really like flow in that sense. So I think I would go for either 2 strands of cloud or nurture plus cloud again for like a similar look. In this case, usually I would say having like a non-fluffy version would totally work as well. However, with the 17 stitches, I think what I would be able to suggest would be my rift worsted base. However, that one, the sleeves would be a statement then, because they are not going to drape as much as with like the open gauge mohair. They would be definitely more stiff, not stiff, but in a way less flowy, if that makes sense. And so I think that's just something to keep in mind. If you wanted to go without the mohair, it's going to alter the look of the sleeves quite drastically. So in this case, I would probably go for a fluffy version in one way or the other and not substitute. But I mean, that's just a personal preference, and I'm just sharing my thoughts here. It doesn't mean that this is like there's right or wrong. In crafting, there is no right or wrong. Everyone should do what they can imagine. But yeah, I guess let me get to my last pattern, and this one is also really exciting, and it's the Rento by Heli Hottinen Puuko. Finnish names are the worst, so it's for me. I'm trying. I'm trying. But yeah, this one is actually Rento means relaxed. It's in the book. I don't know this. It's written here. And that's definitely one thing I would also see with this one. Is a very relaxed fit. It has this super deep dropped shoulder, and then the texture in between, like wider ribbed kind of like wide ribbed texture. So I think it's quite unique. The texture pattern is really unique. And yeah, I just love how they styled it, and how also like the pose of the model is like very relaxed and cool. This is in contrary to the hue shift that I was showing you before. I think this one is one that I would wear open most of the time, because I think it looks very cool with the ribbed pattern flowing down the sides of the body. And yarn-wise, it's a DK weight gauge again, and I think the gauge is 20 stitches times 30 rows on 4mm needles in the stripe pattern. So not stockinette stitch, but in the stitch pattern. And looking at the yarn suggestions they're doing, I think from my own lineup, I would suggest using the BFA Romney DK or the Heirloom DK. Probably leaning to the Heirloom DK in this situation, just because it has 3 plies, and it will probably bring out, even though the texture is subtle, it will bring it out maybe a little bit more. So that would be my personal pick for this pattern. And I just think it's so cool, and it's really like a very I do understand why she called it like the Finnish word for relaxed, because that is the vibe that I'm also getting from this pattern. And that's also what I like about it, because I also prefer my garments to not be very tightly fitted, and I usually like more oversized, relaxed fits in general. So this is definitely calling my name. Um, but yeah, that is the last pick from my 10 favorite patterns from the 52 Weeks of Sweaters book. I can definitely say that there are way more that I would personally knit, and I think they also have like some things even in crochet and also like in chunkier yarn. So they try to cover like, you know, a wide variety of options. So I think everyone can get something from the book. I am genuinely excited about owning this book, and I can see myself knitting quite a few patterns from this one. And because I actually like it so much, I'm more than happy to be able to give a copy to a happy winner of a giveaway. So I guess without further ado, let me give you a bit of info about the giveaway. So I made some notes here in my journal just so I'm not gonna forget half of what I wanted to say. So the release of this book is today. So as you're watching this, the book is available either via the Laine Publishing webshop or probably also in your local yarn shops. So just, you know, if you can't wait for me to close the giveaway and, you know, you don't want to gamble, it's available as of now. And yeah, I am now happy to say that I have a copy to give away. I will give away one copy of this book, and you can either enter on Instagram or on YouTube via comment. So just comment down below this video or on the Instagram reel telling me which pattern you would knit from the book and in which yarn potentially. There also is a full pattern preview on Ravelry. So if you want to see all 52 patterns, you can see that on Ravelry. Just type in 52 Weeks of Sweaters and the book preview will be there. That way you can also decide whether it's for you or like worth it for you to purchase or not. But yeah, you're welcome to comment down below what your favorite pattern from the book is and what yarn you would like to knit it in. Obviously, I would love you to also subscribe to my channel and put the notification bell on. So you're very welcome to enter on both platforms. However, just one entry per person to keep things fair. So if you comment multiple times, I will just count one of the comments. And I guess that is what I wanted to say about it. I'm shipping out the copy internationally, please be aware that you might be responsible for any potential customs or import fees coming up. I will cover the shipping and everything, but if there are any additional customs fees, you are responsible for that. The giveaway runs until the 26th of February, 11:30 p.m. CET, which is my time zone. So just make sure, I will also put all of the details down below in the description box, but just make sure that you keep the time zones in mind. And the winner is going to be chosen randomly, and then I will contact you through a DM or like a message here or comment on YouTube. So please make sure that your profile is not private, or even if it's private, please make sure that you can monitor things, because yeah, if I don't hear back from you after 72 hours, I will need to draw a new winner. So yeah, right after the 26th, I will draw a winner on the 27th around noon, I guess. And then, yeah, you'll know who's going to be the winner. The giveaway is open worldwide, and the giveaway is not affiliated with neither Meta platforms or YouTube. I am the one responsible for this giveaway, and you can find all my data and my imprint linked down in the description box below. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be able to give away a copy of this beautiful book to y'all. Thank you so much to Laine Publishing for being open for this opportunity and creating such a beautiful book. And also congratulations to all the featured designers in this book, because everything is just really beautiful in this book. And I'm happy to be a knitter when I see this and be able to use my hands to create my own garments from this beautiful book. that is it about the giveaway part of the video. If you have any questions about the yarns that I've mentioned from my own lineup, I will link my base page down below, which features all of the info about the yarn, the blends, the needle sizes, prices as well. And I should also maybe say that most of these bases are either available now or going to be available in the next 1 or 2 months. So I hope there will be something for everyone in the next couple of months. And if you have any questions about the bases, always feel free to reach out via email. My email is hello@willandtoyne.com and will also be linked down below for your convenience. But I guess that is it for this video. I will also link all of the mentioned patterns in the description box for you so you can reference them quickly. And so you know which ones I have been showcasing. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a different style of video. Let me know what you think down below. But yeah, I guess without further ado, let me close this episode by saying thank you so much for watching. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Happy knitting. Bye.